What's up, beautiful people? Another day, another study. One of the things that we've talked about before on this channel is air pollution and its links to both cardiovascular disease and neurocognitive disorders like dementia. This is something that's very concerning given the current administration's rollback of several environmental protections, like with forever chemicals in drinking water, also with PM2.5 targets to limit air pollution. So this could be devastating for future generations, even for our generations now, because the incidence, which is new cases, and prevalence, which is overall number of cases in neurodegenerative diseases, driven by a protein called alpha-synuclein. Alpha-synuclein is a protein in the brain, and its exact function is not well known. However, when it misfolds, similar to like amyloid and tau with Alzheimer's disease, it can lead to neurodegenerative diseases. And this is implicated in Parkinson's disease and a particular type of dementia called Lewy body dementia. Now, you can also get dementia with Parkinson's disease. It's called Parkinson's disease dementia. And these two, Lewy body and Parkinson's disease dementia, represent approximately 25% of dementia cases worldwide. Air pollution is increasingly being recognized as a preventable risk factor for dementia. This is thought to be due to the pollutants crossing the blood-brain barrier and inducing brain inflammation and oxidative stress. So this study examined the exposure of PM2.5 and NO2 and the risk of Parkinson's dementia or Lewy body dementia in a Danish national database. So in the fully adjusted model, for every 5 microgram per meter cubed, that's meters to the third power, increase in exposure to PM2.5, the risk of Lewy body dementia was nearly 4-fold greater, and the risk of Parkinson's dementia was nearly 2.5-fold greater. Every 10 microgram per meter cubed increase in NO2 exposure was associated with a 95% greater risk of Lewy body dementia and a 14% greater risk of Parkinson's dementia. And when they examined it in quintiles, a dose-response effect was evident between PM2.5 exposure in Lewy body and Parkinson's dementia, and between NO2 and Lewy body dementia. Now, this was a case control study, so it was an observational study. It had larger associations that we saw in previous studies in this area. Diagnoses were based on ICD-10 codes, which can misdiagnose or improperly assign certain diagnoses to people based upon how they're entered into a database. Another key factor is it did not differentiate between occupational versus non-occupational exposures. That is very, very important because certain occupations have higher exposure to certain toxins. And so we need to know those occupations and the difference between people who are just free living and occupations that are not associated with higher risk. It did not include lifestyle data, which is important mitigating factors, and the exposure occurred in a single population. So overall, though, this adds to the growing body of evidence that exposure to air pollution, especially PM2.5, is associated with cardiovascular risk and neurodegenerative risk. And it's something that I hope our government starts to take more seriously. Until then, you can always protect yourself using HEPA filtration devices that can remove this particulate matter from the environment that you are in the most. Whether that's your home, I have a home, my office is also my home, which I have one in the office as well, because I live in an area with high particulate matter concentrations. This is something that you can check online. The WHO recommends exposure per year less than average of 5 micrograms per meter cubed. You can check and see if your area has higher than that, and you may want to consider air filtration devices if you are in an area with greater air pollution.